Leia lived on imagination. Before her first birthday, she had traveled through all her board books. By the time she was 4, she had taken countless adventures with Miss Frizzle and was preparing to sail the 7 seas with Pippi Longstocking. At 13, Leia could get to Terabithia from anywhere in the world. But she couldn't get out the front door without help. Psychological testing showed that Leia's executive function and self-regulation skills were very low. This meant that even getting her to the bus stop on time required constant vigilance. Weekday mornings often ended with Leia sniffling in the passenger seat, while Joseph or Rachel drove her the 9 miles to school in stony silence. This particular morning, Leia had stepped out of the shower to find the bathroom mirror fogged, a perfect place to sketch plans for the time machine she was going to build in the backyard. It would have a library where she could read, of course, and a large screen for inputting the coordinates of the Beethoven home in Vienna, the Merrington Ball where Elizabeth Bennet and Darcy first met, and the birth of William Shakespeare. Leia had only just begun sketching the spokes of one of the wheels when her dad called from the study down the hall. "Leia, what's taking you so long? You better not have a book in the bathroom." She drew the last spoke. "I don't have a book. Have you dried your hair yet?" "Okay." "You didn't answer my question. Get in here. Let me see your hair." Leia left her diagram, which by now was weeping condensation, and skipped into the study. "Leia, your hair's still soaking wet. Get back in the bathroom and dry your hair." "But I have to brush my teeth." "Leia," Joseph's voice rose in frustration, "you can't go to school with wet hair. The bus leaves in 10 minutes. Get moving." Leia prepared to voice another objection, but was interrupted by a whisper from behind her. She stopped, and the whisper came again. It spoke of Forrest, savage, rough, and stern. She turned and walked toward the bookshelf at the doorway of the study. She waited, and the whisper came again. It came from a book she had never noticed before, a book bound in red and green that promised to introduce her to a woman named Beatrice, whose eyes shone brighter than the stars. Leia and the book slipped away. The house fell quiet. When Joseph realized he hadn't heard anything from Leia, he looked up from his work and checked the time. It was 7:10. He called down the hall. "Leia, you need to leave now or you'll miss the bus, and I am not driving you to school again today." Nothing. From where he sat, he could see the bathroom. Its door was shut, outlined in soft yellow light. He stood up, stepped away from his desk, and moved toward the hall. That's when he noticed the gaping hole Leia had left in the bookshelf. Another book gone. An ugly yet familiar heat flared in his chest and licked at his arms and his neck. It pulsed and burned, fed by her persistent disobedience and his growing resentment. It grew in intensity, this black and twisted heat, until his head raged and his extremities itched, and it carried him inexorably out of the study and down the hall. He opened the bathroom door. She was fully dressed. She was sitting on the toilet. Her hair was still wet, and she was reading a book. Standing at the threshold, Joseph was only briefly conscious of the cheroof about to consume him. Leia looked up and dropped the book. Its pages fluttered in surprise. She watched as her father burst into flames. She screamed and drew back reflexively as the flames lifted her book from the floor. She cried out as the inferno raged at the book until the binding split and its pages scattered like ash. Amidst the roaring and crackling, Leia thought she heard words, but she couldn't be sure since books, when they spoke, whispered promises, and fire doesn't speak. It hisses and roars. Leia slid to the floor and cowered while the bathroom continued to burn. She gazed at the silent drift of words that papered the floor, their black ink standing out like bruises against the white lava stone. She shivered. Odd that the floor should be so cold when everything else around her seemed to melt before the heat that engulfed the room. The last cinder fell, smoldered, and died. Somewhere a door slammed. The flames were gone, but the room still vibrated and hummed, like a tree under the bite of an axe. Leia wiped the tears from her cheeks and picked herself up off the floor, slipping a bit on the ashes before collecting them into a jagged, dog-eared pile that she placed on the sink. Then, sniffling, she began to brush her teeth.